Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
So Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Today, we're going to have some fun talking with my college roommate about our journey from being somewhat distracted in life to being successful, worldly entrepreneurs. So hang on, because it has been a pretty wild ride. Before I introduce Adam Webster, this episode's brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions. And look, I've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades now, and I'm still having fun solving our clients' interesting problems. But what we do is we provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, if you have a warehouse that needs rack, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help with the design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs that help our clients optimize their logistics operations. And Adam is funny. Sometimes people don't even realize that we can actually help with permit acquisition services. We take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit our website, specialracks.com. Give us a call at 707-732-3892, or even give my personal email out to podcast listeners. So email me at markhiddleson@aol.com if you're ready to take your warehouse storage and retrieval systems to the next level. And before introducing today's guests, I do want to give a big shout out to past guests Joe Paulo and Mick Mankowski. Joe is a sales coach and game-changing trainer, and Mick is a 50-year apparel entrepreneur and managing partner of Symphony Investment Partners and owner of SB Licensing. Those two interviews we've done recently are packed with game-changing strategies for entrepreneurs and top sales professionals. So I have so much history with Adam Webster going back to the mid-90s. We grew up together, or in my case, never grew up. But Adam has transitioned from being a leader in the automotive, racing, service, and logistics industry to lab, automation, instrumentation, and robotics guru in the life science industry. He's the president and CEO of field service company Monterey Automation, and he also currently serves on the board of directors for the National Auto Museum in Reno, Nevada. Adam, welcome to the Tao Pizza.
Thanks for having me. Wow. That was a lot going on there, Mark.
I always have fun.
All right. Show's over.
With this. That's a wrap.
That's it.
So I write all of my own intros, but I used your verbiage on the, I love that somewhat distracted is kind of a euphemism for complete knucklehead. But when I read it, I was like, it was somewhat, because even though we were young, we were having fun. We're both pretty serious about building a career, right? I mean,
yeah, I think, especially you have to, I think people forget at kind of that time in our life in the mid 90s, that was, sort of the internet was a new thing, at least it was for us.
Yeah.
And just overall guidance and misguidance was, it was a learning curve, right? And obviously we learned and made it work right. So we're here today.
Yeah. Well, the way, I don't know if you remember exactly how we met, but I was assistant sales manager at Bear Country, Chrysler, Jeep, Plymouth, or whatever. And you were a rookie. We hired a lot of rookies back then. You were on Danny Peterson's crew. And I remember, I don't know what it was. It was just a half a day. And it wasn't so much even how I saw you interacting with customers. I saw how you interacted with the other salespeople. And I'm like, I want this guy. Like, we're going to do a trade. So I went to Danny and I'm like, I want this guy. Who do you want off of my team? We made the trade. And the rest was kind of history, right?
It happened relatively quickly, for sure. Yeah, I think it was day one. You're like, huh? Yeah. And then went on from there rapidly.
Yeah. So before we get into the karaoke and everything like that, so by the time I graduated from college, which was about three years later, you'd kind of passed me in the industry. I remember when I took you on, the first thing I said was you you can't wear those kind of pants. Remember that? I go, you got the wash and wear look.
You know what's funny is, I didn't have two nickels to rub together, and my dad had taken me to like Marshalls or Ross or something, and he's like, "No, here I'm gonna hook you up, and you just need to have like 4 or 5 outfits." And obviously, being able to afford dry cleaning, all that stuff was kind of out of my wheelhouse. We were not, we didn't have money.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal to be able to have uh, affordable, unwrinkling clothing, action wear, if you will,
Yeah.
and that's just the way it was. So
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah, it was funny. And then you actually got me out of we used to iron our clothes. I remember we'd be running late to work. We're supposed to pick up Brian, who was our boss, and we'd be ironing. And at some point we started making enough money, and you're like, dude, it costs $1.50 to have somebody do your and
It
some of
was
those,
right next to our hairdresser. It was kind
yeah.
of
Oh God, the hairdressing ladies were awesome.
Vicky Hair's nails, and yeah, you just kind of get it all done, get your dry cleaning, you get your hair cut, and you know, those are your tools for your day or for your week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember training you, and one of the things was funny. You could tell people what to say, but a lot of people wouldn't say it. Like they're afraid. Like, we had a program. We were trained. We were lucky. We were surrounded by some really talented salespeople. That one of my favorite stories is that when you were doing a write up for a car deal, you're supposed to say, normal bank financing requires a third down. In this case, that's going to be $11,433. Will you be writing a check for that or
Or
more
more today.
today? And you did it with Leroy Lake. He said normal bank financing requires a third down. That's $11,333. Will that be cash, check, or charge? And the guy said he would write a check. Like, usually people would say, "Are you crazy?" But most people didn't ask. Did you get that same feeling that people wouldn't ask, like, even though you were supposed to ask?
Yeah, well, that's the big part about sales, and I think that is kind of what makes that kind of is what differentiates a salesman versus not a salesman is somebody that can just ask for the sale, or however awkward it may be or feel. You have to literally just, okay, this is what it is. Are you ready to sign up now? And
Yeah.
whatever it is, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're, the way I look at it, you're selling yourself. So it doesn't matter what product it is. Obviously, if you believe in the product, then it makes it that much easier. Um, you and I have been blessed with the gift of gab, and been able to, talk our way in and out of a lot of things. So um, it's just probably that, it's a blessing and a curse, but
Yeah. I talked about that with so Joe Powell. That's why it's a coincidence. I've had Joe and Mick, and those guys were, and even Mick. He said I wasn't. He goes, I didn't think I was a natural salesman, and still, and I said, I didn't. He goes, I was an economist and I was a statistician. He goes, and then once I started talking to people, he goes, I realized. He goes, I am good. I am good at this. Um, so, what were some of the things that you learned in that early part of our career that you still lean on today?
I think just the drive, just the looking forward to interacting with people. That's one of my favorite things. Obviously, um, I think if you dread what you do, if you get up and oh God, I gotta talk to people or whatever, that's not my deal. I'm out of bed really early, uh, get emails done, kind of get my quiet time, and then it's go time. And I'm at the office usually by 8 or 8:30 in the morning. And it's good for me. It's having a healthy relationship with your employees is one of the things that makes a lot of sense to me, and that's kind of carried on since our time, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
being able to have good communication skills with with everybody that you work with, no matter what role you're in. You treat everybody the same, and you hope that they treat you back the same. That's,
Yeah. We were talking about before we got on about how sales goes into everything, and it's a relationship. Like in our business, it's relationship. Like we've been in this industry for 30 years. A lot of the people, there's probably 200 people that I've known for 30 years, and it's just that's really what's kept our business going is the relationships. And there's a sales aspect in that, really, is getting to ask, like we were saying, ask for what you want, but also be willing to listen to what they want, which is even more important, and either
right.
say, no, we can't do that, or yes, we can, or we'll try it. We'll figure it out. We'll work something out.
Sure.
That's a good point. So what gave you, how did you transition from, because you were a leader. I mean, even like I said, once I graduated, I was kind of following you. You had a job in finance, general manager, and you were really taking off in the car industry. What was the transition like into life science and lab automation?
Well, that we don't have enough time to dive into all that, how that happened. It was really by um, I had a buddy of mine that sold a company, and I had kind of we were I was very involved in what he was doing, and he wound up selling his company. And I thought, oh, maybe this is something I could get involved in, and having an idea of the importance of, obviously, in the automotive side with parts, recertificate, just in the car world, especially with collecting cars. Parts are such a critical role, and just having the knowledge on how to work on these things it's just a big deal. Um, and to put it into perspective, when you look at a car that's 100 years old, or even 50 years old, being able to keep that thing running, it can be a difficult task. So, long story short, I wound up, I developed this company with a partner of mine, and we kind of he had some contacts in this field, and it was a crash course for me. Life sciences is, I would say that it's a lot different, but it's very similar to a lot of things that we deal with, and kind of our thoughts are on repairing instruments, if you will. So we have technicians throughout the country that, they'll go into LabCorps, they'll go into Cleveland Clinic, they'll, just all sorts of different facilities, and they'll work on analyzers. They'll do preventive maintenance, as well as emergency service. So the one thing with life sciences, which is even more critical, is that their instruments have to be up and running, and if they're not, it's a big deal.
Yeah, life or death.
I wouldn't.
Like in our business, people, I'm like, hey, look, this isn't life or death. I mean, I realize it's important we finish on time and everything, but it could be, right, in your industry.
Yeah, I mean, my particular scope of work is not going to be life or death, but it is, on the financial side, these things, they're pumping out samples, that's their business, that's their core business. So they rely on us to make sure that we have somebody that's obviously experienced and trained on whatever instrument that might be. And there's so much going on in our space. I can't even, it is just, I said, we'd have to do a lot of different programs to get over that. But I just, getting back to how did I get into this? I felt that automation is so important, and moving forward. I think there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning every day. I'm lucky I surround myself with a lot of people that are a lot smarter than I am.
Yeah.
And so that helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having a good team, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still able to do the things that I like. Um, I've got a family. I've got, that's a whole nother topic, right? How
yeah.
to balance family and work, friends, all that stuff comes into play.
So how are you doing on that? That's one of the things that my career, and we even did it even we were young. I mean, we were just having fun, but we had a balance. Whenever I think of when we worked together, Roseville would hold a jet ski to work. It's like because we're off at 3, and we're 20 minutes from the lake. And it's funny, you'd be in kind of a little confrontation with something with a customer or something. They're in a hurry, and you're like, "Look, no one's in more of a hurry than I am. That's my jet ski right there." At 3 o'clock, we're going to the lake.
It
So
was very, we definitely had priorities, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I think we were good enough in that field that we were making money that, you know, at that, when you're in your mid-20s and you're making that kind of money, it's like you're like, whoa.
yeah,
You look back on it and you think, man, I really should have probably made some better choices,
or not. I mean,
or not. I
uh,
mean, I definitely, I'm
well,
glad where I'm at. It
yeah,
brought me to where I'm at today. So,
yeah, yeah.
but you look at like retirement, all that. I mean, that was
Oh
like the
no,
last thing on earth we're thinking about.
yeah, yeah. That was one thing. Well, I was in college, and this is something I thought of this morning that a lot of people, because we were making good money. I got promoted. I really didn't want a lot of responsibility because I was in college and I was trying to go to school. One of the things for me, the car business gave me the flexibility because I could work from 3 in the afternoon until 9 o'clock at night most nights, and then figure work school in. And I remember one time people would always say, "Why are you going to school? What you're making a lot of money." We used to say 10 grand a month, but was our goal. Like back in the day, you're like, I took more than that 50% pay cut when I got out of the business, but I'll never forget so many people would hassle me. "Why are you going to school? Why are you going to school?" And we always used to love to give each other a hard time. I was a little shocked one time, and you were like, "Hey, look, Mark is on a goal to do something else, and he's going to school, and you guys are here in the car business in 5, 10 years." And that made me feel really good. I don't ever said thank you for that, but I looked over and I was like, because we were always giving each other shit, right? Like, "You're a loser, you'll never amount to anything." But when somebody else challenged me, you were like, "Hey, this guy." So I appreciate that. And I don't know. I think it says a lot about our friendship. And even though we were immature or something, you saw that vision that I had, and I was glad because I was thinking, it's like, man, I'm broke. I could be making a lot of money. I'm taking every other quarter off of school. So I just appreciate that you saw that, and you said something, and it was
Well, I mean, and I meant it. Obviously, you were, when you look back on things and you look at the skills that individuals have, that whether it's trained or whether it just comes natural, right?
yeah,
For you, it was just natural. So it was a no brainer. And to be able to get an education while you're making good money. And I mean, that industry, talk about education.
oh yeah,
Like, and I got to see it all. I was very fortunate that I was able to get into the upper management, if you will. So, looking at understanding financials and really just getting through all that was very rewarding, and lucky that I was able to do it.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of those skills. I heard a new word on my podcast of Joey Spangers. This guy, he's a accountant. And you would think like accountant is boring or anything, but they do like he calls it performance accounting, and he said he's industry agnostic, which means you can plug and play in any industry. And I kind of think a lot of the skills we learn, it's like you say you went into life science, like a lot of that stuff carries over, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. And you went, I mean, I think, you were GM, so you're looking at flooring costs and the whole picture of like how a business operates. I never really got past being assistant sales manager is like, how do we sell cars? How do we get it?
Yeah, and it's that industry has changed so much
Yeah.
in just in the since we were involved in it. I'm sure you you still have a lot of knowledge on how to go and buy a car, but it's just changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
Honestly, anymore, I've become a lay down in my old age. I usually just go in there and I love because I did it when I was young. I have a heart for people that are doing that. And I when I run into a lot of knuckleheads, but if I run into a salesman, it's hard for me to say no. I mean, I bought a 2014 Corvette Stingray. It was like 1 out of 500. And I was just like browsing on the lot. And this guy, from the time he shook my hand, I could feel it. I go like, this guy's shaking my hand as if I'm going to buy something today. I'm like, but I'm not. I remember thinking that. And he did all the right things. He got me to feel the wheel makes a deal. Right. And you can't drive one of those cars. And it was 1 of 500. And I'm like, I don't want 1 of 500. I just want a blue one or whatever. And it was blue. So I ended up paying like 5,000 over the sticker price. And they wanted like 20,000 over, right? I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But finally the owner came down from the top. And then once the owner, he's like, I promise to drive my daughter to school in this car tomorrow, but I'll sell it to you for 5 over. I was like, let's shake hands on it. And my wife's gonna kill me. So I had to call her and say, hey, I need somebody to come and get my truck because I bought this car.
Well, you remember, I don't know if you remember this or not. I'd kind of got to a point in my life where I could probably afford a more expensive car. And you and I went and looked at BMWs, right?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And I was kind of teed up to do it. I was pretty committed to do it. And then we were so disappointed because the salesman, like, I don't remember what he like lied to us. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, oh yeah, this is like, I don't remember what he said, but it was such a turnoff.
Yeah.
And we got in the car and you looked over at me, you go, man, that guy just blew a deal. Like, you were ready to go. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I wound up getting that Jeep, but
Well, that Jeep was awesome. The one on the brochure, it said you could drive it in the water up to the headlights.
yeah,
The first thing you did is drove out to Folsom Lake to try it out.
I did.
Yeah, that was fun. You kept driving in the water deeper and deeper, and you'd come out and you'd go, were the headlights under? We'd be like, no, you got to go deeper, go deeper, go deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that story reminds me from a sales perspective. Uh, yeah, I mean, lying to someone is a turnoff. And that guy had no idea we were in the business, And so like it was automatically looked at each other. This guy's full of it. And maybe we were young, he didn't think we could afford it. But the one it reminds me of, someone came up to you, it was rough, and he goes, man, he's like, the last 10 people I talked to don't want to buy anything. And you go, well, that's funny. Everybody I talked to just came in and said, hey, we're ready to buy. Here's our wallet. Sign us up. Which is the furthest thing from the truth, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's not buying until they are. So
Yeah.
how do you work with that? I mean, how do you what is it that makes you know? Like, even though people are telling you no, 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 and you kind of, I mean, I guess you get the no, right? After a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially in the industry I'm in now, I would say it's not, these are not things that happen overnight. They're definitely relationship building. Um, we kind of go back and forth. I have a kid that works for me now. He's kind of plucked him right out of college, but he's a good kid. He's smart. Um, his name's Oliver, and he's learning. He's learning how to do it. So what I'm trying to do is just share with him kind of my the ropes on how I learned to do things. I'm trying to just share books or whatever I've read. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Dale Carnegie. Um, that's always worked for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, the relationship building is such a key. Like, I have a lot of guys. I mean, you know how it is. Just like you and I, right?
Yeah.
We could go for years and not speak, and the phone will ring, and we're talking just as if it was 25 years ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's just like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
And those are just relationships and building relationships. I have colleagues that I've known for years, and I won't talk to them for a long time, and they'll call me in or they'll show up in town, and it's just like we just pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
So it's important.
Yeah, your dad gave us a book, or he gave you the book. I still have it. It's right there. Uh The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. I remember we were like 24, 25, and we're like, what's spiritual laws of was Deepak Chopra. And I've told people about that book, and they're like, well, I had one client in particular. He's like, well, what do you believe? Well, you brought up Dale Carnegie. I mean, that's kind of one everyone. Uh, and he was asking me some of the books that I really liked, and I just brought up that because Rancid, your
Yeah.
dad had given it to us, and he goes, oh, he goes, you from now on, I'm going to call you the bleeding liberal from the North. And I was like, oh, the guy that gave me this book seemed like a pretty conservative dude. But he was asking me, like, well, give me an example of the spiritual laws of success. And I was kind of flat footed because I couldn't remember, I can remember. And I go, I don't know, I go, think positive. But there are some good, they're like the law of pure potentiality and the law of intention and desire and the law of least effort. I mean, that's a fascinating book. Your dad gives him. Uh, my oldest son, Cody, we do training and everything. I always say readers are leaders and leaders are readers. And he said, I think someone who reads a lot said that because he was challenging me on it. I was like, well,
Probably true.
probably true. Yeah.
Hey,
So,
I'm all over the place, Mark. Like my read right now is the five languages of love, right?
yeah, dude, that is one of my all time favorites. What do you think about that?
I mean, it all makes sense. Again, having uh work and home life and friends and all, you really have to sometimes dedicating my time to, a certain percentage doesn't go well. I'm like, okay, I'll work really, really hard for X amount of time, and then I'll kind of be distracted from my family or my
Yeah.
friends. And so I need to do better at that. That's one thing I'm always really I really recognize in myself, and we all look inward, right? That's
Yeah.
beat
Oh, for sure.
ourselves up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my read right now. And
Yeah.
it's
So what's funny, I just remembered. So I haven't even read that book, but I read about the author, and he said his biggest point was there's five love languages. Most people are dominant in two. Uh, for me, it's only one. It's physical touch. I'm like a 9 on physical touch and like 2 on verbal affirmation. But what people make the mistake of is they think if that's their love language, they overdo that in their relationships, and that might not be theirs. So the
right.
good thing of knowing all five is to kind of know what your partner or your relationship or your friends. And first of all, I want to do a disclaimer: business relationships are 1,000 times easier than her home and personal relationship.
Agreed.
It's like you practice in business to go home and find out where the real hard work is. For me
Oh
personally.
no, I think I think that's anybody that has a successful relationship, you have to appreciate what's going on at home. In the business side, obviously you want to make sure that your customers are happy and that they know that trust is a big thing and just um, in all facets of life, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be business or home life, but home life is challenging because that mean unless you want to sleep in a hotel room, uh, better have your act together.
Yeah. Well, that's why I have a friend, and she's been married for 30 years. And I was like, yeah, it's like, it's a sort of struggle and everything. She's like, well, we don't have a lot of those challenges. And I'm like, man, how is that possible? And she goes, well, most of the time we don't live together. We're in separate parts. I'm like, yeah, that is a different dynamic.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I mean, Casey and I were involved. She's not involved in a lot of aspects of the business, but she's involved in the business. Our kids are in the business, and for me, I'll never forget somebody. I've been working from home. Like working from home's a new thing. I've been working from home for 30 years because my boss, I was gonna say, he goes, look at no one's gonna buy anything we're selling here because we're making it. So I want you out on the road. If you can work from home, it's gonna save you the time of commuting back in the office. Just produce, just keep producing. And people would say, man, how do you keep from being distracted? And I'm like, man, you know what I have to keep from is I'll just work till midnight. I'm having so much fun. It's a new challenge, a new thing. I'm good at it.
Sure.
Then once you hang up and go home, the home's like, no, I'm home. Now I'm not a Superman. I'm reality man. And so I really had to disconnect from work because it's easy for me to just get caught up in it. This is so important. It's the money, it's the relationship, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if a lot of people are like that. I think you and I are both like that just because we love what we do and we're enjoying it. But that, for me, it's harder to hang it up than to, I'm not out. I mean, I do some, I don't care. I'll go out and get a suntan for 20 minutes and then come back to my computer, but I'm getting shit done.
Yeah. So, I mean, the balance part is always been a challenge for me as well. So being able to, something's going on. Maybe not so much at home. I really try to not bring home stuff to work. It's funny, but sometimes my work stuff is. So
It creeps in. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
maybe I
Yeah.
should focus on other things sometimes. But again, I know you're the same way. You look inward, and then you kind of, if you get caved in on something, then it just becomes a bigger deal, right?
Right.
Rather just sit down and be like, okay, hit the reset button.
Yeah. Or just start doing things differently. You could just start
Yeah,
not really talk about it or anything, but that's a lot of the books I've read. It's like say this or say that. Well, you can only say so much. Like you got to do stuff, right? You got to change the behavior.
Mark, it's the 300% rule.
What's that?
100% of the product to 100% of the people, 100% of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Your boy Brian, that was Brian's like go-to.
So did Brian. We got to talk about the Red Rocker. Speaking of legendary mentors, I asked, and he was a mentor for us. We've always given Brian a hard time, but man, he was a master. I thought we were pretty good in sales, and Brian. And it's always one of my. After I got out of the business, I worked for a guy named Ross Clark, and he really took me under his wing, and he was training me in sales and Dale Carnegie, and there's this guy wrote a book called Influence and Influence with Honor. He goes, you have to be careful because you do develop a skill. You can manipulate people if you want. Kind of like you were saying, sometimes you sell something that you really want to buy it back. Got convinced this person to do something maybe wasn't a good idea for either one of us.
Yep.
But Brian would always put it together, and that was laugh. The last time we were together, we went to a friend's funeral, James Van Zant, may he rest in peace. And we looked at it as an opportunity. It was the pandemic. Uh, we wanted to get together for a restaurant. I didn't really have time. I had a houseboat lined up. I had 20 people going, but I'm like, I want to see these guys. I want to see Adam. I want to see Brian.
Ernie.
I like to see Brian, and Brian hasn't changed in 30 years. And in 30 years, we've changed a little bit. But I didn't have time to go to the thing. And Brian goes, well, he goes, just go to the church, just meet everyone. Like, hey, Don Reibold's going to be there and everything. He goes, just be there. He goes, it's only like a 10-minute thing. It's like, it's not a big 2-hour deal. He goes, just go.
Yeah.
It's like Ernie, because Ernie was late to the lunch and then Ernie wasn't going to be there. Ernie Gonzalez. So I go, okay, Brian, I'll just go to the thing. And then I get there. You're not going to get there and then leave the service in the middle of the service. And it turned out to be like a full hour and a half deal, right?
Yeah. There's people singing.
And it was beautiful. I will say this, and I love Brian. I hope he hears this podcast. He should. Actually, one of the most touched and moving. I wasn't super good friends with James, but we worked with him. But hearing from a daughter, the mom, community. I mean, things like that's when you look back, and I was like, wow. So, anyways, Brian put me together. Like, he didn't sell me on staying at the whole funeral. He just sold me on getting there. Because it's only going to be 20 minutes, and then I'm looking at my watch. 2 hours later, like on this houseboat, I've got 20 people showing up. But Brian was amazing.
He was like, if you were to think of like the Mike Tyson of that industry, literally just fascinating. I mean, you'd sit there and in awe looking at that. And I think he's still basically doing the same thing. He's done it, for his entire adult life. And I think some of his juvenile life. I mean,
Yeah.
his dad was in the business, and
What was his dad's name?
Warren.
Warren Sachs. That's right. Yeah, Warren Sachs. He was a good man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy was like, he was a pit bull. And still to this day, he'll reach out every once in a while. He'll call me, and again, it's just like talking to somebody that, or just like I just saw him yesterday.
Yeah.
So definitely a put together artist, like, oh yeah, let's, and then the next thing you know, you're involved in some, like a 4 hour something else.
Yeah. He was a great closer, and like you said, Pitbull, he never let go of an idea. Sometimes you just acquiesce and be like, he's not going to give up on it. So we're just going to give in rather than have this go on and on and on. But I got a lot of favorite Red Rockers. So we used to drive him to work. And I don't know if we should say why, but I do love the story because he, I'm going to throw him under the bus for having a few DUIs 30 years ago. But, back, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. But back then he had a few, he had more than one.
He doesn't drink any. He hasn't drank in a long time.
Okay, good.
I think.
But I love it because he had a really good attorney and he won. It was like his fourth case. And there was something like a little glitch in the fourth case and he got his license back. It's like they ignored the other three before. I'm like, how did he ever do that? So,
oh yeah,
he was a mastermind. He just never gave up. He came back and remembers like, you guys don't need to pick me up from work today. We're like, what? He's like, I got my license back. How the hell did you do that? So amazing guy. He taught us a lot. He believed in us. He took us, speaking of relationships, he always took care of us. He took us out, after work. I really
he
like,
did.
I like Brian. You could tell he cared about us, right? I mean, he wanted us to produce, he wanted us to be salesmen, but he cared about us.
He definitely did. And again, we were pretty pliable. He must be in his 60s now, right?
I guess if we're in our mid 50s or early 50s, he's got to be 60.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do the math there. I'm trying to think, because he was like just one shelf above us on the age. I mean, he was already, bald and kind of.
Remember when he showed up to the house in the full racing gear on the road bike? And I don't ever phones didn't have cameras back then. I don't know how we go do a racing pose, and we were just kind of joking, but they shot down in the crowd seeing we're taking pictures of guys. I'll tell one on myself. I'm a cyclist now for about the last 5 years. As I'm getting older, I really don't want to run. I just want to stay in shape. It's fun to ride a bicycle. So I put those same kind of pants on because you can't, like, I'm doing a 40-mile ride next weekend. You can't go 40 miles in basketball shorts, right? You wear a hole in your rear end. So I got to give one to Rocker. I do wear the tight pants and the elf shoes to ride my bicycle now.
Well, we'd go over to his parents' house and like there'd be pictures of him in these outfits on their family wall. And then right next to it would be him with a falcon or some sort of. They had all these photos of I think they called him BJ. I think that was what his mom called him and his dad
middle
called
name.
him
Yeah.
BJ. I think it's Brian Joseph. And so we would always get a chuckle out of, because you and I, bachelor pad, right?
Right.
I don't know if we had any pictures of anybody.
Right.
I don't even know if we had. I don't know what we had pictures at all.
I don't think we did.
I think the only thing that we had that was kind of cool was that we had a black cable box that we were able to watch all the current. I think Pulp Fiction we watched probably 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But we were able to watch all that stuff by having that black box, which
it was a chip. I'll never forget. Remember we met, it was a guy that his name was Frank or something. We met this guy and we're buying it's called a scrambler, right? A scrambler box.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And we're sitting in the EDD employment development parking lot. This guy, I'm like, this is a sting operation. Right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's the red Nissan or the blue Malibu, but one of these guys, an undercover cop. But yeah, we bought that scrambler. We had Pulp Fiction on. It was pay-per-view. And back then pay-per-view was expensive. Like now you can buy a movie for like $3. It was like $18 or something back in 1995.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would just put it on. We had Pulp Fiction on for like 48 hours in a row. We just never turned it off. We just left it on.
Yeah.
That was a great movie. I mean, I'll still watch that. The thing is, it brings me, it triggers me into some old thinking patterns, like back in the day.
Yeah, those were definitely that was a while. But you know what? There was also a lot of some of the memories I have. You know, when we had our group of guys, we were all very close. We worked together intimately, I would say.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, because our friends and family, and we were so hyper focused on our career that we also included girlfriends, wives. Everybody was kind of, you know, this, you almost think of like a Goodfellas situation or something, but it's true. We would go on trips together. We would do everything together, barbecues, everything. Um, it was a fun experience.
Yeah,
And I look back, obviously we could have done things a lot differently, but at the end of the day, that's why we're here today, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
That's a little bit on your holistic touch.
It really is because that's included in where we are. I mean, the mistakes. A lot of times, I always say like the mistakes are kind of the most beautiful things because it's. I heard this. There's a Japanese idea about mistakes, especially broken in relationship. But if you take a vase that's just perfect and brand new, compared to something that's been broken and then put back together, you see all the cracks, and then you filled in the cracks with like gold lace and everything. You look at this beautiful vase; it's got
Yeah.
cracks, and it's way more beautiful than just a brand new one. And about those relationships, I mean, that was an early lesson in teamwork because when we started working in Roseville, I'm gonna remember we weren't working at Bear Country very long. I'm like, dude, we're going to the big leagues. Like we've been in the minors, like, we're gonna go to the big leagues. I can't remember us ever not being top crew. Right? It was you and I. We're both pretty new, but Brian was the leader. We had Ernie, we had Ed the
Ed
Shields.
DeShields. Yep.
You
Ed
guys,
passed away.
yeah. Uh,
Um,
but we were a
Ernie
team.
never, yeah,
Ernie,
we were a team. We were a crew. We had kind of a couple flyers, I think Mark Talent and all other guys, but yeah, we were pretty solid. And that, remember, that was like, we had just kind of made the move on the cell phone
right?
dynamic too, right?
Yeah,
So we had fresh cell phone action,
we
and it
did.
was free evenings and weekends was that was a big deal for us.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the little Motorola flip phone that looked like a Star Trek, and it had the thing. I pulled out
Oh
an old
yeah,
phone. We were like, hold on, I got a call. You pull out the antenna. We're just,
hold on, yeah,
yeah, let me
yeah.
talk about Motorola flip phone. The buttons were like, a little,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
at the beginning, and the internet wasn't. I've got this slide deck that I put on there about innovation and technology, and I've got a picture of, I don't know if you remember my college when I used to type all my papers on an old Macintosh.
Yep,
It was the console and it had the little, I
yep.
mean, I was 1995, 1996. There was internet, but nobody was using it until 99 or whatever, right?
Well, my dad bought me that. He bought me a Gateway. It must have been 95, 96 or something. And he called me one day. He's like, "Hey, have you put that thing together? Are you using it?" I'm like, not so much." He's like, "Well, give it back to me because technology's, moving forward at a high rate of speed." I put the thing together, and I'll never forget, it dial up. And it was so cool. But I mean, now you look back on it, and you're like, anyway,
Yeah.
that was technology's interesting thing.
Well, that computer, I remember we were looking at it together and stuff, and you go, you know why this thing is so glitchy? I go, why? You go, I didn't read one of the instructions when I said it. You can see that pile of books that it came. I didn't read one of these. And it was kind of, I don't know. We just didn't know how to use it, I think, is the main thing.
Uh,
Yeah. No, that's good. And I was on dial up until I started this company in '05, and I had a really good client that I'd worked with at other companies. And he goes, send me those pictures and then let's talk about it because we want to do something. And I go, okay, it'll take a minute. And I hit my thing for dial up, and he hears this. The factory goes, what the hell is that? And I go, this is '05. And I think by then most people had dial up was a thing of the past. He goes, are you on dial up? I go, yeah. He goes, hang up the phone right now, get DSL, and then call me back. Because I was like, I'm gonna have to send these pictures in like 4 different emails, and it's probably gonna take a couple hours. But
we still have a guy that you probably remember that works here at the shop behind the Atlantis, Bart. I think he's worked for us for 24 years or something like that. He still faxes his time card in, right?
fax machine?
Yeah. Well,
Does it print out on curly paper?
no, what he does, he's our, well, actually, he might have had to switch over because the scanner something wasn't working on the scanner. So I think I think this may have all just changed in the last 90 days or 120 days, but fax machine, he would fax his hours in. Like, you can just use your cell phone and, oh God, I'm not doing any of that.
That's funny. I
Uh,
I interviewed a guy who's been in this industry 50 years, and I was asking him about that because to me, there's all this technology, and we used to have to fax things. Now you can just email it, download as a PDF, scan it. But it doesn't seem to me like we're not really getting that much more stuff done. Like it still takes a week to get an approval drawing. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I remember having to call clients and say, is it okay for us to fax these over instead of FedExing it? People had resistance. Like,
oh
well,
yeah,
we like the FedEx guy or whatever. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
it was a push to get people to fax, and then now obviously everything's electronic. And even building permits anymore, a lot of the stuff we're doing, it's electronic, which is awesome because you don't have to go in there. It's faster, better. I mean, what have you know? So we're running. I didn't even realize that's we're running close to time. But what's some of the technology that you're using, an app or technology? Um,
we're just starting to dive in a little bit into the AI and maybe starting to work with some developers on how to improve in our space, how to improve on training, logistics, everything. I mean, we average between 200 to $350,000 a year just in FedEx,
wow,
because I have to have a part there tomorrow.
right.
So um, it's a critical part of our infrastructure. But if we can figure out a way to reduce those, I mean, between FedEx and airplanes, that's just a big problem for me. So my guys are kind of located throughout the country wherever the instruments are. So if you have, say you have 50 instruments in Raleigh, North Carolina, well, probably want to have a guy living close to there. So um, one thing the pandemic really taught us was how to avoid the airplane situation, just keeping people off planes. Um, we had to go, I'll never forget going back to the pandemic, that was kind of the unknown. And in my industry, I had one of the guys that's running the Cleveland clinic on a conference call because he says, well, I need to have somebody here. You need to fix this instrument. And I'm like, my technician, he was, just had a baby, or no, his wife was pregnant. I was nervous about it and I didn't want to do it. And I said, hey, he goes, well, we're the Cleveland clinic. We don't close because there's a pandemic. And so I remember that I was put in a spot as an owner of how do you, how do you address that? Right. You
Yeah,
just say,
take
well,
care of your client and your employee, right? I mean,
yeah, so it worked out. It was terrible. And my employee he was younger, new family. I called him up and I said, look, this is on you. I said, if you choose not to do it, I'll have somebody else do it, or I'll go do it myself. If I'll figure it out. He goes, no, he goes, I'm good with it. I'll wear a mask and this and that. Long story short, he winds up getting COVID. His
oh,
wife gets it, but everybody was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody was fine. Thank goodness. But I'll never forget, at that point I was just like, oh man, really?
Yeah.
But
It was tough to do the right thing because you don't know, everything is brand new. I mean, we had a lot of the same things. It's like we stay because a lot of our clients are in the food industry. Same thing. They can't shut down. Everybody's going to starve. So we're in cold storages. So it's even worse condition because your guys are spending an hour in a 0 degree freezer and coming back out. I mean, you're getting anything susceptible to more stuff no matter what, just because of the conditions. Uh, and I got tunnel vision, but yeah, when something like that happens and you look at employees, especially, pregnant and the baby, like I look at, well, the biggest thing, if I have credit for, my transformation, it's having kids. And it such a huge, and it just changed in 10 seconds. So people was like, well, how did you know you're ready? And it was like, I wasn't, I didn't know I was, but the second it happens, you're ready, and there's no way to explain it. Only my friend Chris Johnson was telling me that he cried when his daughter was born. I was teasing him. I'm like, "Oh, you're a loser, you're crying." But I remember bawling my eyes out, dude. And I'm
I
like,
did with all three of mine.
yeah. I had to call Chris Johnson to apologize because when my daughter was born, I was just overwhelmed. So who ended up going? He ended up going and he ended up getting COVID. Like, oh my god, like what? You know, who would have known? So
Yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, now, like I said, now I think from a business strategy, we're a little more prepared for something of that nature to happen again. We certainly weren't expecting it. I thought we'd thought of everything, but just when and I'm sure in your industry as well, it just blindsided you, and how do you improve, and
yeah.
and so you don't let it happen again, right?
Yeah. And just training and compliance. And we learned a lot from our clients because our clients are mostly bigger companies than ours. So we're basically learning from them and trying to get. And I had clients, and one of my best clients, they got 150 employees and they had like, I forget what it was, 8 cases or 11. Like if there was a certain number, you became a hotspot. And
Yeah.
so it was rough as an owner for him. I'm glad I didn't go through anything like that. But our last few minutes, I want to ask you what's your best advice? Because I think a lot of people listen to this, people who want to excel in sales, or probably I think a lot of people that listen to our podcast, they either own their own company or they want to start a company. What's your best piece of advice? I mean, we've talked a lot about it, but what would be your best
Um,
advice?
well, obviously, I think it's very important to surround yourself with uh, success. Um, I think who you are is really a product of who you surround yourself with. I think if you want to own a company, start a business, be involved, I think it's very important to read books, talk to people, get a mentor. Typically, people, I'm sure that you've found, I know I have, that people that are successful, they appreciate when you ask them questions,
Yeah,
and don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't think there's no bad question.
yeah,
Um, it's such a I'm sure you see it all the time. And I love it. I love it when somebody comes up to me and goes, "Hey, what do that's awesome."
I,
I love that. So
yeah,
that would kind of be my take. Obviously, the relationship side is very important. Making sure that your family understands what you're kind of what you're shooting for. I think that's important so that you can also have a little bit of push from the inside, if you will.
yeah.
Obviously, your wife or your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever it is, make sure that they're on the same page.
Ooh, that's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah,
And even if they're not on the same page, at least they know what your vision is, right? And
yeah,
that's your passion. Some people, they look at cars or they look at whatever and they go, oh, luckily my better half, she loves cars. So that's an easy one. Lab automation robotics. Oh, kind of.
it's a sleeper. So say a little bit. I forgot to ask you any questions about the National Auto Museum. What's going on with with that. We do have a few minutes. But what's exciting about that one? What's happening?
Well, I'll tell you right now we're in that my dad has been involved with the National Auto Museum for 30 plus years. It's the Bill Harrah collection. I don't know if you ever went through that when you were a kid. Harrah's, you've heard of Harrah's.
But, yeah.
He was a big car collector. He had he had 1,600 cars at one point. And didn't do a very good succession plan. I don't think that's just not who he was. He didn't really think about the future. So my dad's been very involved in the auto museum. It's located at One Museum Drive in downtown Reno. Next time you come to Reno, I'm going to drag you down there.
Yeah.
It's just a slice of history. So there's a lot going on there. We've got a great group. We're really focusing now on education and how to get younger people to, obviously our lives have changed dramatically with cell phones and just technology, internet, everything. Younger people are more focused on this than they are, real people, real things.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to have you come visit. There's always an opening here. We have lots of hotels here.
Yeah. I will come. I will be there.
I know you're not probably going to sit at a blackjack table or anything, but I won't either. So we got a lot of nice restaurants, a lot of things to do. We'd love to have you. It'd be nice to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. And this has been so awesome, man. Thank you. I've been wanting to invite you on for a long time. You were a super important friend. You were a mentor for me. It was cool. You started out working for me. Within a couple of years, I was working for you. I loved it both ways. And this has been a lot of fun, man. And congratulations, you're killing it. You're in your career.
You are. I'm literally a guest on your show. Like, how cool. Who would have thought, right? If you were to go back 30 years ago and be like, what do you, this is amazing. This is incredible. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I had a mentor coach recommend that I started a podcast a few years ago. I was like, man, I don't want to start a podcast. That was embarrassing. He goes, no, because they looked at our business, what we do, providing values. And he's like, a lot of what you provide, it's way different than what somebody thinks of in your industry. When they work with you, they're not just working with, the rat guys. So thank you, man. This has been awesome.
Hey, well, thank you, Mark. And yeah, you were instrumental in my success at a very young age, in my success. So I always have appreciated you and your guidance. That was, we were a good team, right? Yeah. We did a lot of good stuff. So we did a lot of stuff that we probably wasn't so good, but it made us who we are today.
It really did. It really did, man. Thank you. This has been awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.